Welcome to Money Savage REI, and welcome our guest, strong and powerful Ari Rastegar. Ari,
My
you ready to
man,
do this, man?
I'm excited, man. I watch your stuff. You do a great job. Your
Well,
listeners are lucky to have you.
I appreciate that. Ari is the founder and CEO of the Rastegar Property Company. He's working to make access to high-quality, recession-resilient, income-producing real estate easy and accessible. Again, I'm excited to have you on, Ari. Tell us a little bit about your personal life, some more about your work, and why you do what you do.
Man, I'm the why guy. Look, my life is my wife and my three kids. It's funny when I had my first child, or when we had our first child, Victoria. It stopped being about me. It stopped. Everything was on her timeline. If we bought this property, because we were, look, my dad was an Iranian immigrant, and in Iran, my grandfather was the Shah of Iran psychiatrist. And he, was a seven-time gold medalist. This unbelievable
Wow.
man. And my father, it was big shoes. My father was is an attorney, very educated, but after the revolution, we weren't Muslim and aligned with that regime, so they killed our whole family. And luckily, my grandparents were able to escape. My uncles were already studying at UT down in Austin, along with my dad. So we got really lucky. So they went from having all the luxuries, so to speak, in the world to starting from nothing, and same with my mom, came from very humble beginnings. And my wife's mother, is from Guatemala, her dad's from Spain, and her mom grew up on dirt floors. So I delivered pizzas through college, started this business with a $3,000 loan when I was in law school using my scholarship money. So this guy was definitely a teardown. Like, this guy had to be built from nothing, and it's still very much a work in progress. We still have a lot of windows to change, some new paint, and still kind of putting it together. And on the real estate side, I was born and raised in Austin, and kind of grew up here in Austin. Went to law school in San Antonio, Texas A&M undergrad. I was an English major. Most people don't know that. They think that I studied finance and business, and I'm very much a data analytics fanatic, but also just a student of life. I'm a big reader. In everything, from all the way from Tony Robbins to Ralph Waldo Emerson. You can find on my desk. Um, but now for us, it's really about core values. And for us at Rastegar, being an Austin native, being one of the largest real estate owners in the city, I own 100% of the company. Our investors are public pension funds, family offices, and we're rolling out our new REIT that you kind of mentioned, that's going to allow smaller investors for the first time to access institutional grade real estate. A lot focused on the Golden Triangle, some in Austin, but mostly in the Sun Belt, cities that you would think of with large technology hubs, the Phoenixes, the Raleighs, Nashville, Charlotte, cities like that, and allow the smaller accredited investors to participate in what will be, Austin is just, Oracle moved their headquarters. And if you kind of do your homework, Silicon Valley was built on Oracle. Oracle was the crux of what made Silicon Valley Silicon Valley. So Tesla, as much as I love Elon Musk and respect so much what he's doing, if Tesla went bankrupt tomorrow, you just buy a different car, right? If Oracle goes bankrupt, the world shuts down. You cannot go to a restaurant and order food without Oracle. You can't get on a subway without Oracle. It's like there's so much that they're the backbone of the world's operations. And from what I hear, Larry's going to be spending a lot of time down here in Austin. I've seen Zuck several times. Facebook's second largest office in the world, Google's second largest office in the world, Amazon's largest acquisition of 13.2 billion of Whole Foods is founded and headquartered in Austin. Amazon's largest distribution hub is in San Marcos, 20 minutes south of Austin. There's a lot going on here, and I assure you, it's just getting started. If Apple, for example, they bought 140 acres in Austin last year. Their campus doesn't even open until 2025.
Right.
So there's so much growth potential. We own over 500 acres in the Austin MSA. We've invested successfully in over 38 cities, 12 states, and 7 asset classes with our audited track record, third-party fund administrators, audited financials. And all I keep wondering is, where are all these investors when I needed when I needed the money 4 or 5 years ago, you
Sure.
know? And now we've been having some great conversations with great people. And our core value, like we always talk about, is create value. Create value. Be a conscious capitalist. Profit isn't a bad word. So our core business is taking vintage multifamily, which is effectively 30, 40-year-old product under 100 doors in Class A locations. I call it the $5 Uber ride. Within $5 Uber ride, you can get to all the fun stuff. That's one of the checklists. That's one of the things I look for, and we deliver a Class A amenity when we're done. We take it down to the studs, replace all electrical, all mechanical, roofing. So when we pass it on to the next buyer, they literally have an annuity. So we lower expense ratio, increase rents. But there's an old saying on Wall Street that bulls make money, bears make money, pigs get slaughtered. So if you have the Class A across the street, we can charge in some instances 40% less than the Class A, delivering the same experience to our neighbors, which is the name at Rastegar for our tenants. We call them our neighbors. And to me, that's value creation. That's giving the end user, being obsessed with your consumer in that kind of Amazonian Zappos kind of mentality, and making sure that we're focused on our investors and focused on our end user. And we found the more that we do that, the less ego we have in the game, the stronger our investment committee is. And we've been very fortunate. But I'd be remiss if I told you we had a lot of luck behind us too. I mean, there's a lot of luck that helped us get here. So it was old-fashioned hard work. I'm not the smartest guy in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been very, very lucky and very blessed to be born and raised in this city. I say city, but Austin is really a town on steroids.
Yeah, yeah, and if it's not a city right now, then it certainly will be pretty soon, I think. Man.
It's getting there. And I joke that, like, Dallas and Houston are metropolis, right? I
Yeah.
mean, these are massive, massive, massive sprawled metroplexes, and Austin has geographic barriers. So it's built on the lake. So if you go too far west, you're hitting the hill country where you literally can't develop. But if you go, call it 50 miles south, you're hitting San Antonio, which is another top 15 city. Austin just became the top 10 city in the U.S., ironically surpassing San Jose, the heart of Silicon Valley, which I thought was just funny. I mean, it was just funny to see that. But Austin can go east, and it can go north and south. If you go further enough north, you hit Dallas. If you go further enough south, you hit San Antonio, then you hit Mexico, because it's on that kind of I-35 corridor that actually ends in Chicago. So there's only so much, and from a supply and demand standpoint, that's what's going to drive value. Employment. And obviously the joke is that Austin isn't in Texas. So a lot of the folks that share differing political views than a lot of Texans. And for me, people ask me all the time, so are you Republican, are you Democrat? I'm like, look, I'm an American. Like, I see the merit in both. I think, that one side has a lot of great points, the other side has a lot of great points. I don't agree wholeheartedly with anybody on anything, much
Sure.
less politics, but
Right.
I can pick the jewels, and I'm excited for President-elect Biden to take office. I think he has some great intentions, and I pray for him, and I pray for his administration that we'll get some healing done and do some good stuff. But it's a very interesting time, but I want to be very clear that the data points to this truly being one of the greatest buying opportunities in the last 100 years. I mean, during recessions or pandemics or whatever you want to call it, some of the greatest companies in the world were started, the Microsofts, the LinkedIns, the Amazons. I mean, you just keep going. And you're like, oh my gosh, those companies started during the worst calamities ever. So there's more opportunity today than ever. But Edison used to say that most people, miss opportunity because opportunity shows up in overalls.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you got to slug through it, you got to work through it. But there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, and with the vaccines coming, I'm super optimistic about us finding a new normality. Because if you look back to World War II, necessity is what drives innovation, and so we're seeing this vaccine roll out, faster than any vaccine ever. And a lot of people have looked at that and said, well, is it risky? Is it this? Is it that? And I'm not that's not my expertise, so I can't speak to um, the efficacy of the vaccine. But what I can say is the world really came together, and you have countries talking that weren't even talking, and innovating, and they rolled this thing out so quickly because it was so necessary. And I thought that was such a beautiful thing, to see all these countries and scientists and global leaders talking and helping. And there was a lot of unification. So for the first time in a long time, we realized that we're all humans. And so I'd like to focus a lot on that silver lining that's come out of this and that's created some of these opportunities. So, but the news has become kind of shock therapy. It's like the killer wasp. You hear all these
Murder
things,
hornet.
but
Yeah.
or the killer hornet or whatever it was. But there's a lot of great that's come out of this stuff as well, and my heart goes out to all the families that obviously have lost loved ones, and we've been connected to some of those, and obviously it's they have all my love and all our prayers, and I just hope that we just kind of keep this rolling a little bit, and
Yeah.
and get it moving forward.
Yeah. Amen. So it's super. Everything going on is both exciting. It's scary. And there's a lot of head scratches in there too, because while we have small businesses being decimated and we have people dying, we also have the stock market just going higher and higher and higher. And I live in Phoenix, and property
Love
values
Phoenix.
are just going up and up and up and up. And you just mentioned how, from a data standpoint, that this is just an exciting and a great time. Part of me says, well, when's the other shoe going to drop, though?
Yeah, so it's really, I mean, look, questions are the answer, as one of my mentors used to say, right? You want the right answer, ask the right question, or ask a better question, right? So first of all, I love Phoenix. Love Phoenix. We have a condo development going up at 4th and Van Buren, right next to a big Trammell Crow development, which you'll see our signs and see our stuff going up there. Condo sales in that area have gone completely gangbusters. I bought that land a couple years ago, and we partnered with the local developer, so we break ground, I want to say, in about 6 months. And then we're looking at a bunch of vintage multifamily in Mesa and Scottsdale and those areas. So I love that market for a variety of reasons. But you're right. There's only so much that you can print money and continue riding this thing. And I think that, well, I don't think, we're trading at PE multiples, in the mid 20s now, which is just screaming for a correction. And the point is, that's not a bad thing necessarily. We've had the longest bull market in history. Okay. Some of it feels a little bit like smoke and mirrors. In some, the tech sector certainly has, gotten, really, really inflated, but they've also created a lot of value. So there's two sides to it. I think we're asking for a major correction, but I'm not a market timer. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm a risk manager. Okay. And so for me, I look for asymmetrical risk. I say, look, how can I take the least amount of risk to generate the best risk adjusted returns? People don't come to Rastegar, to make the most money. They come to us for singles and doubles, just kind of hitting singles and doubles, getting on base. If you want to go look for 50 IRRs and 10x returns and things like that, go find a VC firm or something. That's not, kind of, what we do. But I definitely believe that shoe is going to drop, but you're seeing home prices surge as a result of the pandemic. People leaving that urban core and wanting safety, wanting security, wanting their own homes. So that's a direct result of what's going on in the pandemic. But as the vaccine rolls out, there's a huge demographic that wants to be in the urban core. They want to be in walkable areas. So people are going to come back there. And this whole concept of people working from home indefinitely is bullshit. I mean, people, we are tribal by nature. We work better when we're in person. We whiteboard together. We break bread together. We talk, we collaborate, and, create ideas. And, I'll give you one statistic that you'll like is, back in the 80s and 90s, in the 70s, the largest tenant of office buildings in the United States was law firms. Okay. And I'm a recovering attorney. Okay. Still scarred, but my bar is still in good standing. And I know that because my father reminds me every day that I should do my CLEs and do the stuff, which I do out of respect. But when, and the reason they were the largest tenant in the world or in the country certainly was because of libraries. So they had floors and floors and floors of libraries of all the books, of all the briefs and the case law. But when all that digitized, all of a sudden you had a law firm with 16 floors in Manhattan went to one. And people are like, oh my God, this will never recover. There's no way. I mean, all this vacancy 2 years later is back to stable. So there are certain sectors, in my opinion, like if you're a coder at Google and all you do is sit behind the computer and you're not, client interfacing, yes, I think absolutely. But Coca-Cola started that 10 years ago of allowing work from home for certain job sectors that don't require human interaction. But people want to be in the office. People want to get out of the house. They want to travel. They want to go meet their clients, certainly in the marketing and sales and any of those types of industries. And I think it's going to come back in what they call a K-shaped economy and K-shaped recovery. And I don't like jargon. I'm not a jargon guy. I'm a simple guy. But basically, the K-shaped recovery means certain asset classes will recover quicker than others. So hospitality might take 3 years. I'm just using a number, but multifamily, which is screaming, and single family homes, which is screaming right now, came a little quicker. But there is no question that people are going to be back in the office. They want to be. And Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, as you know, said the productivity has just plummeted since people were working from home. Okay. And the CEO of Zoom, who's now worth however many billions, who, obviously, caught lightning in a bottle, he came out publicly and said, I'm sick of Zoom meetings. And I just thought that was just funny. It was just like, he's even funny. Has Zoom fatigue, right? And so, again, there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of good stuff to focus on, but I'm very optimistic that if we extend the timeline to the 3-year, the 5-year, the 10-year, there's a lot to be learned from this, but on the 10-year, this is just going to be a blip. I mean, this is just going to be a total blip, but I'm with you that we were asking for a major correction in the stock market, and commodities, real estate, gold are inherent, hedges against, global risk, inherent hedges to inflation, which, depending on which side of the fence you look at, I don't see how we raise interest rates over the next 3 to 5 years without causing massive calamity. But eventually there will be some inflation, and real estate is your quintessential hedge against that type of inflation and insulating from global risk.
Nice. I love it. Well, Ari, Savage Nation is ready for your difference-making tip. What do you have for them?
My difference-making tip is I kind of have two, if that's okay with
you. Sure.
One is mindset. And I know that sounds a little cheesy, but we have to be very focused on our inner dialogue and how we talk to ourselves. And I've had a life coach, for about 12 years. I'm a big Tony Robbins guy. I'm a big believer in the Handel method, which is, started by a lady named Lauren Zander that represents the likes of Hugh Jackman and Michael Rapino and, huge names. And she's been my coach for 12 years. And, we have to really be conscious of that inner dialogue. of how we're talking to ourselves, being gentle with ourselves, and being aware of the mental trauma that this has taken on us, and just continuously forcing ourselves to keep a positive outlook, focusing on our goals, knowing where we're going. My father used to say, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to know when you get there?
Mm.
You could have the best car filled with gas with the best tires, but if you type in the wrong address in the GPS system, you're not going to get there. And no matter all the grit in the world won't get you to the address you're going if you put in the wrong address. Okay, so that's kind of one. I apologize for being verbose, but that's one. And two is we can't stop educating ourselves. We have to keep learning. And there's so much free resources on YouTube, on podcasts, on all these things that just flood yourself with learning. Just keep learning, whatever that is, even if it's a little bit here of a great mind that's on that you respect, that's in your industry or not. Take that tidbit, take a little note, and constantly educate yourself during this time, and just don't stop learning. Like, just continuously fill yourself with that, and by doing that, it'll keep your mind focused on where you want to go. And if you're not there, I delivered pizzas through college. I flipped burgers, when I was, in high school. And if a kid like me with a speech impediment, 7 years of speech therapy can build a, knock on wood, soon to be billion-dollar company from nothing. Certainly we're in the hundreds of millions, as you all know. We've been covered in Forbes and the Journal. A simple Google search will tell you that. You all can do it. Just keep learning, keep reading, keep being optimistic, keep believing that the future is bright, because I assure you, you're going to need sunglasses, because the future really is that bright.
Well, I think that is great stuff. That definitely gets it. Come on. Ari, thank you so much for coming on. Where can Savage Nation learn more about you, and how can people get involved with the new REIT?
Rastegarproperty.com. Is the best place to reach us. And you just can fill out a contact form. Someone on our team we'll get back to you, and then there'll be a link directly to the REIT, and it's very digital. You can click on it and go directly towards it. The press release will go out this coming week. But obviously, if you can come to us through the website is the easiest way, or find us on Instagram. You could follow me personally at just @Rastegar. On Instagram, and watch what we're doing. And we're very excited about a lot of projects coming up. A development that we have in downtown Austin will be one of the first post-pandemic design buildings. We were actually on the cover of the Austin Statesman yesterday with these new HEPA filters and UV lights and touchless entries, staircases on the outside, and just really being at the tip of the spear of what the future looks like in a post-pandemic world.
I love it. Well, Savage Nation, if you enjoyed this as much as I did, show Ari your appreciation and share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Go to rastegarproperty.com. Is that right, Ari?
That's right. Or you can just Google my name, Ari Rastegar, and I think you'll get more than you bargained for on the news.
I love it. Well, thanks again, Ari.
All right, buddy. Thanks so much for having me.
And until next time, keep fighting the good fight, because we are all in this together.
Yes, we are. God bless you, brother.